Hello. So I think this will be the last video that I make of this section. This is the fifth video, and each video is kind of long. I think you should be getting the hang of this by now. So let's try another one. So this is the same thing as y equals -2 over cosine of x, because secant is 1 over cosine. Our period is going to be 2 pi over b. Since our b is 1, our period is going to be 2 pi. So let's go with our amplitude is -2. So let's make this 2 and -2. Okay. Then let's look at our asymptotes, or when your denominator is 0. So this is going to be at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2 and 5 pi over 2. Your odd multiples of pi over 2. So that is where we have an asymptote. Okay. And then let's graph this. We're going to kind of squint our eyes and graph something very similar. So let's graph y equals -2 cosine x. Okay. So remember, cosine normally begins up, down, and around. But since this is -2 cosine, this graph is going to go down to here. When x is pi over 2, we get 0. And we can continue this pattern. Pencil in a nice smooth curve. This is your cosine graph. Actually, this is your y equals -2 cosine. And then the cosecants, the mountains, and your valleys. Those are not mathematical terms. Those are just things that I made up. And then we can erase the cosine graph because we don't need that. There you go. So this is the graph of y equals -2 secant of x, the pink parts. Okay. Let's do another one. So this is the same thing as, oh, sorry. This is an unusual angle, but we can graph anything. And so let's graph this one. So the period is going to be 2 pi over b. So this implies that the period is equal to 2 pi. Okay. Where are the asymptotes? So the asymptote is going to be cosine of pi over 2 is 0. And so what we're looking for is, when is this true? And it looks kind of unusual, but we can have this. So, or we can have, technically these mean the same thing. Okay, it's a very unusual, but yeah. So pi over 2, well, pi is 3.14. So pi over 2 is like 1.57 minus 1. This is going to be about 0.57. And this right here, the period is going to be 2 times pi. Well, pi is 3.14, so 2 times n is going to be about 6.28. So let's go with pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi, 5 pi over 2, and then we have negative pi over 2. And then when x is about 0.57, we're going to have our asymptotes, because 0.57 plus 1 is about pi over 2. Cosine pi over 2 is 0. So let's do, so 3.14 divided by 2 is going to be like 1.57. This is 3.14. Let me get a calculator. So I'm just using pi at 3.14. 3.14 divided by 2 is about 1.57. And then pi is 3.14, 3 pi over 2, 4.71, 2 pi is 6.28, 5 pi over 2 is 7.85, and then negative pi over 2 would be negative 1.57. Our A is 1. So if this is 1.57, then this mark right here is going to be about 0.79. And this mark right here gives us about 2.4. This mark is going to be about 3.9. These are just really rough approximations. I mean, I am using a calculator to help me, but they're still rough approximations. This is going to be about 5.5. Why not do one more? It's about 7.1. And this will be negative 0.79. So we have a phase shift of 0.57. Not exactly a phase shift, but yeah, let's call it that. 0.57 is where an asymptote is going to be. And then, since our period is 2 pi, we have 2 pi plus 0.57, or 6.28 plus 0.57. So at the next point would be 2 pi plus 0.57. 6.85 is the next asymptote. 6.85 is going to be between these two. And then we need a point halfway in between those two. Okay. Then we kind of squint our eyes and we graph something that looks like y equals cosine of x plus 1. So we had already established that when x is 0.57, 0.57 plus 1 is pi over 2. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0. So this will cross the axis here, here, and here. This shifts everything to the left. Since it's periodic, we're also going to have one happening at thinking about there is going to be the next one because it's going to go down and over. Let's see what happens there. Plug in at pi over 2. So pi over 2 plus 1. Whoop. So what I'm doing here is I found cosine of 3.1415 divided by 2 plus 1. This is in radians. Gives me negative 0.84, maybe about here. And then I looked at 3 pi over 2 plus 1, did that in radians. So 3 pi over 2 plus 1 is 1 half of 1.5 times 3.14 plus 1, 0.84. Okay, about there. So that is my, and then let's look at, and so then I looked at negative 0.79 plus 1, negative 0.79 plus 1. Cosine of that is going to be 0.978, almost 1. So this is a very challenging one, but I liked it because it shows that we can graph anything, even if the numbers are very challenging. Okay, so there's one period of the cosine, but we want secant. And so for all of the mountains, point it up, and all of the valleys points down. And again, those are not mathematical terms. Those are just terms that I made up. And then we can erase the evidence. That's a period and a half. I want to show you one more of a different type of style. And so when you have something like this, factor out your B term. Okay. And I think this will be the last one that I graph in this section. I've covered a good amount of them. Oh. No. I'd rather not do this one. It's going to give me the same headache as I did up here because we're not dealing with nice, simple numbers, getting rather complicated. And so the same procedure that we did here, this x plus 1, we're going to do the same thing here with the x plus 1/3. Your period is going to be 2 pi over b, but this might not be so bad. All right, I'll finish this out. So here the period is 2 because we factored a pi out. Pi times x is pi x. Pi times 1/3 is pi over 3. These are the same things. This is negative, so it's going to be reflexive about the horizontal axis. Our period is 2, and we're in phase shift to the left of 1/3. So let's do this. Our amplitude is 1/2, so let's go up 1/2 and down 1/2. Shifting to the left 1/3, and so it's going to start here. Let me put in a structure. So that's this, what I just penciled in is y equals negative sine x is this right here. Okay, but we need to shift everything to the left pi over 3 units. And so this will actually be and let's add some more numbers in here. And so if each of these is a third, there's my 1, my 2, 3, 4. So the period is 2. So if the period is 2, then I should have 4 markings in between. So that the basic shape of this graph will be here, down, up, because it's negative is going this backwards route. Okay, and since it's being shifted to the left pi over 3 units, this dot is going to go here. So I would not give you one of this challenge, this amount of challenge on an exam, but I wanted to include it because we can graph anything. There you go. Thank you very much. Please go to tutoring.